Hey guys, and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be doing a review of the new Fine Feathered collection by Colourpop. I do have the entire collection here, and I'm going to be going through step by step how I created this look right here and my opinions on all of the products that I used. So if you're interested in this collection and hearing my opinion, then keep on watching. So this is one of Colourpop's mini collections. It is a smaller one. It doesn't have the whole like multi-cheek option type situation. It is a eye set. So the eyes are the focus of today. So in the collection comes the Fine Feathered eyeshadow palette, the Super Shock Shadow Duo, and two of their cream gel liners. These are the ones that I've mentioned I really like. There are other ones that are the cream gel pencils, not liners, pencils. I don't know why they're different. I don't know what's different about them, but I don't like those. They don't transfer very well. They're not my favorite. These ones are good. So it also comes with two of those. So this is the entire collection, and I'm gonna walk you through how I created this look. So first I went in with the eyeshadow palette. The eyeshadow palette is very, very beautiful. I started with the shade High Flying. This is like a rosy type shade. It is matte, and I just kind of applied that throughout the crease. This was my transition shade. It is light enough that you can get away with it as a transition shade, which is really nice. Sometimes not all palettes come with light enough shades, and I do find myself wanting to grab another palette for like a lighter shade to help the ease of blending process. But as you can see, everything blended out really, really nicely. This shade really did help that as well. Then I went in with the shade Hen Party, which is a more vibrant shade. It is kind of fuchsia, and it definitely did brighten things up. It was pigmented, blendable. It didn't lose its pigmentation and its, vibrancy and its richness as I blended it out, which with purples that can sometimes happen. So that was very impressive. I then went in with the shade Telltale. So this is like a nice plummy shade, more rich, more deep, and a little bit darker. It definitely deepened things up. As you can see, I applied it on the outer crease and on the outer lid. So this definitely, as I said, added more depth, darkened things up, and it blended into the other shades really beautifully. As you can see, everything really does, look very seamless. And so I do believe that the mattes in this palette are very consistent with their typical formula. I do like the shade selection. I obviously didn't use them all. I didn't use the shade Nest Egg or Goose Chase. And I also didn't use the shade Take a Gander. So Take a Gander is it's described as a coral pink. How does it swatch? Yeah, it actually does have a little bit of like a more warm undertone, which is nice. So the shade Goose Chase, which I did not use, is right here. As you can see, it's very similar to Hen Party, that nice fuchsia, but it's a little bit richer and darker, which is nice. And then the last shade that I didn't use, Nest Egg, is described as a red fuchsia. So it's another one that has a little bit more of those reddy undertones, and I can see that a little bit. So I feel like when I looked at this palette, I definitely saw like a lot of the same shade, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to be worth the purchase. But after swatching the shades, there's definitely a lot of variant in the purples. It gives you, ranges from more rosy mauvey shades to some more warmer toned shades here, a little bit more of that reddish undertone, and then you get more of those like plummy fuchsia purples. So for a fully purple palette, it definitely does still have quite a bit of variety in terms of matte, and I do think you could do quite a bit with the matte. I then went in with the shade No Flocks, which is the metallic right in the center here. This is like a nice metallic rosy shade. It is really, really pretty. And I did kind of cover it up, so I will swatch it here for you. It's very creamy, very light reflective, but it still has a more darker color to it. So it's not, it's nice to have more of a, deeper metallic. So it still has that sheen, that shine, that light reflectiveness, but you still can kind of pop it in the center of the eye, and it doesn't have to be fully bright, which is kind of nice. I like the degrees of brightness in metallic. metallics. So I popped that in the center of the lid with my finger. It went on really creamy and pigmented. It was really easy to apply, minimal fallout. It's honestly a very, very stunning shade, and I really, really enjoyed that. The formula is super incredible. Like, it just feels like so creamy to the touch as well. I then went in with the first liner, which is the dark plummy shade in the shade Charmer, and this is a gel liner. So I did smudge it along the lower lash line to about halfway, and then I did use a brush to kind of smudge it so it looked a little bit more blended, and then went in with the shade Telltale, which I used in the crease on the lid, in the outer crease. I also used that to kind of set it down and blend it and smudge it out further. Then with the second liner that it comes with, which is in the shade Loverboy. So Loverboy is a more bright kind of fuchsia liner, and I did apply that in the more like inner corner to about halfway, connecting to the darker plummy liner, and then kind of smudged them together in the center so it almost like transitioned seamlessly into one another. They blended well together. It was honestly really, really easy to work with. I then went in with the shade Hen's Party to then kind of diffuse everything out. And as you can see down here as well, everything's blended seamlessly. So really the liners are very easy to work with. They're very pigmented. They do apply in the waterline, and they do last decently well in the waterline. And they smudge out nicely, blend out nicely. They work with the shadows really well. So ultimately, the liners I really was impressed with. The color selection was perfect for this collection. The palette does come with a nice bright metallic here called Tweet Me. So this is a soft peachy pink metallic. It's one of those kind of duochrome shades, so it's actually not all that pigmented. I wasn't maybe overly impressed with this shade specifically. I did apply it in the inner corner. So at first I was applying it with a brush, and it was okay. It did brighten things up, and it is a very beautiful shade. But I do have to say I wanted a little bit more from it, because as an inner corner highlight, I did want it to really brighten things up, being such a deep and rich palette. I did wet it, and as you can see, it did the job. So if you wet it, it really does help. I do kind of wish that it either had one more metallic in there, or the one that I am talking about here was a little bit more pigmented. And I do really like this formula where they're the more sheer kind of lid topper, kind of duochrome shades. But I do feel like because it was the only bright shade for inner corner brow bone, I wish it was a little more pigmented, a little more bam. Now, if you're not interested in super bam bright highlight inner corner brow bone type thing, then you will definitely be happy with it. But because I really like my inner corner super bright, I do feel like I wish it was maybe just a little bit less duochrome, or at least a little bit more intense when it comes to the light reflectiveness. Now, I was definitely more hopeful when it came to these guys here. So after doing all of that, of course I had to try them all. So I did go in with both of these. First, I popped on Plume, which is the darker Super Shock Shadow. As you can see, these are very bright. The Super Shock Shadow basically feels like cream. So you will literally, like, you could just dunk your finger right in there. It's so soft. These are definitely more bright, definitely more pigmented. So they kind of saved the day when it came to brightening up the lid and everything. This one is a little bit darker. It has a little more color to it, and it has like a duochrome effect. So it has that kind of plummy shade, that purpley effect. And then in the light, you see that glitter, that kind of silver shift. And so that was really, really pretty as well. But my favorite, the star of the show, was this one here in the shade Bubbly. So after applying Plume, I went over with the shade Bubbly. Lots and lots of glitter today, guys. This one is so pretty. It is very similar to the one in the palette because it's kind of that more sheer, like duochrome effect, but it has more of like that light reflective glittery effect to it, and so it really brightened up the lid, gave a little bit of that glitter effect, but not too much. Like, it wasn't chunky glitter all over the eye. It was more like that light reflective, like you turn your head and you just see this like little fine sparkle going on. It's a really, really pretty effect. and it actually, especially over top of the darker shades that I already had on my lid, it really brightened things up and did exactly what I was hoping. So altogether, I'm happy with everything. That's basically my final opinion. The palette, I do think, actually impressed me more than I thought. Looking at it, I thought all the mattes look very similar. There's only 2 metallics. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. All of the mattes, as much as they look very similar, they actually do have quite a bit of difference. Like, as I said, there's some warmer tones here, the cooler tone, more fuchsia over here, and then, you know, the transition shade. Oh, and we also have a sequin, which they're all right. They're not my favorite formula, but they're all right. I like the 2 degrees of metallic, but as I said, I do wish this was a little bit of a different formula. I wish it was more pigmented and less like duochrome, because I feel like both of these have that same effect. So I do personally prefer these 2 over the one that's in the palette. So I do still think that these are worth purchasing because they really took the look to a new level and really like amped up the eye. But I do really wish that, because these are both like that more sheer glitter topper type duochrome effect, I wish that this one was like their typical metallic formula, really pigmented, that we could just like go ham in the inner corner. I don't know. That's my only complaint, really. Ultimately though, that aside, I am quite impressed. I do feel like I'm really happy with the look that I came up with. If you're very into purple eyeshadow, I do think you'll be very impressed with this. If you want additional options in terms of lid toppers, go ahead and grab the Super Shock Duo. I do think they're actually worth purchasing. They're different enough from the palette that I don't think you're seeing repetitive shades. Like, they're brighter, especially the shade Bubbly. It's very bright. So if you like to really brighten up the lid or the inner corner, I think you're gonna like this. Like, I do think this would be better for the inner corner than the actual one in the palette because it's a little more pigmented. But yeah, ultimately, honestly, I am happy. I do think that despite those few critiques I had to say, if you are interested in the color scheme and it's you know, if purple eyeshadow is, you know, something you play with very frequently, or if it's just something you're interested in grabbing, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Formulas through and through with both the duo of the Super Shock formula and the palette are really incredible, pigmented, blendable, and beautiful. I do really also like the liners. I think they're pigmented, they're smudgeable, they're long wearing, and the colors fit right in with the palette. So ultimately, I think if you wanted to grab, the entire collection, I do think you would be able to make use of it all. I think it's worth purchasing. I don't know, I feel like it's also like an all year round color scheme. You could go with this for the fall, like that nice purpley deep look, but you could also go with it for the winter. Like, plummy shades are very in the winter as well. And then there's also enough like fuchsia and bright that you could do it in the summer too. So I feel like it's definitely a very versatile, universal type collection. It's one of their smaller collections. You can get the entire collection for only $29 and the full value is $40. So you're saving $11. You get an eyeshadow palette, 2 single shadows, and 2 liners for only 30 bucks. I really don't think you can go wrong. Sorry guys, my hair is just wild today. I didn't have time to style it, so we're going with it. Okay, guys, so that's my final opinion on the Fine Feathered collection. I hope you guys found this video helpful and enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.